Chapter 16 is: the basis of all spiritual teaching is that spiritual consciousness evolves in what is called time. We may wonder why time enters into that which is eternity and which knows no such thing as time, but the element of time is involved because spiritual evolution is the unfolding of consciousness, which to our sense appears as time. However, there is a definite moment in time and space when each one of us makes the transition from law to grace. Up to that point, we are students of truth, seekers after God, and through our study and good works, we hope and expect to improve our human situation. The Hindus liken this process of spiritual evolution to the peeling away of the skins of an onion. The peeling away of one layer of skin is barely perceptible, but by the time 10 or 15 layers have been removed, a definite change is noticeable. As the skins are removed, layer by layer, eventually a place is reached where there are no more onion skins. There is only nothingness. The onion is no more. And so it is that human beings are born into this world, bringing with them numbers of layers of material sense, to which they continually add, building up the onion self, skin by skin, until they begin the return journey to the Father's house. When that spiritual impulse is felt, then we begin to study and meditate, always with the goal that one day we may actually feel God within us, realize the presence, be touched by Him, and come to live under grace in that state of consciousness in which there is no longer any law, no longer a law of good and evil, no longer a law of cause and effect, no longer a law of punishment and reward. There is only a state of grace, and at a certain moment in our experience, it happens. Such an experience takes place in time. It may happen at 10 o'clock in the morning, at midnight, or in the silence of the early morning hours, but at some time or other it does take place, and we feel that inner impulsion and know that we have felt it. Then we relax, or, more accurately, it relaxes us. It relaxes us to such an extent that we never again feel a responsibility for our own life. In fact, if it really happens, we no longer care whether we live our life on this side of the grave or on the other. Actually, it could make no difference, because life is eternal, immortal. Neither do we concern ourselves with whether we have a certain amount of dollars left over at the end of the day with which to begin tomorrow, because every moment of every day is lived under grace. It is perfectly all right to have $1 million if life unfolds in that direction, but it would not concern us if there were nothing left over. Every moment is provided for by the grace of that moment. We can know how far we are from attaining spiritual consciousness by how much we live in the future. We can know how far we are from attaining even good, normal humanhood by how much we live in the past. Only a very, very mortal material state of consciousness lives much in the past, either in the glories of the past or its sins or diseases. Only a low state of thought concerns itself overmuch with the past, except as the past may have lessons for the present or for the future. But otherwise, dwelling in the past, immersing or dousing oneself in either its glories or miseries, merely indicates a great, great distance in consciousness from the spiritual estate which lives by grace. The degree of humanhood also can be measured by the extent to which one lives in the future. Spiritual being has no future. Spiritual being means living this moment, relaxing in it, rejoicing in it, sharing whatever there is of this moment. Can you imagine trying to live a minute from now? A minute from now is a complete vacuum. It has nothing in it and nobody in it. What pleasure can there be in an hour from now? And on the other hand, how can we be concerned for an hour from now, when we do not know what God's plan is for us an hour from now? How do we know how the rent is to be met on the 1st of the month? Or how do we know that the fuel will not be in the basement at the proper time? How do we know God's plan? When we are fearful, we are declaring that God has no plan for us, and we are virtually saying, I am counting on making my demonstration without the help of God. As a matter of fact, if we understood that life is God's demonstration and not ours, we would not be concerned whether we were cold or warm, hungry or fed. Is not God capable of maintaining himself as his own image and likeness? We cannot live an hour ago. Try it and see if you do not pull yourself to pieces. Try to live an hour from now and see whether you can move yourself forward in time. You cannot. You only make yourself miserable by wondering what might happen when that hour arrives. Begin to live in the now. This living in the now does not shut our eyes to the fact that tomorrow will also be now, but rather makes us realize that that which is a seed at this moment will in its nowness be a bud, and when it is a bud, it will in its nowness become a full-blown flower. That is living in the now. But to concern ourselves with whether or not the seed will ever become a rose is living in the future. This is God's universe, the universe of spirit, and if we do not live in the universe of spirit, but insist rather on tabernacling in this world, then we withdraw ourselves from my kingdom, from the kingdom of God. When we are living in time, the past or the future, we remove ourselves from the kingdom of heaven. There is no kingdom of heaven yesterday, and there is no kingdom of heaven tomorrow. The kingdom of heaven is a state of grace which can only be experienced now. That now may be 3 o'clock or 8 o'clock or 12 o'clock, but it is always now. To go back to an hour ago in memory or to concern ourselves with tomorrow is deliberately to remove ourselves from the kingdom of heaven, but to live in the realization that this second God is expressing itself, God is fulfilling its own destiny, is to live in the kingdom of heaven here on earth. When I say that there is a point of transition in time when we pass from speaking these words, reading or hearing them, to living them, I mean that at some specific moment in time a change of consciousness takes place within us when this becomes a living truth, not one heard with the ears, not one read with the eyes, but a living, demonstrable truth in which we become stabilized and from which we never move. This transition into a consciousness of nowness is a state of grace in which we relax and realize that henceforth we do not live by physical might or mental powers, but that we live by divine grace, and that not of ourselves, but of God. It is not human wisdom or any truth that we know that will bring it about. Our wisdom and our truth will merely be the reminders to hold us to that straight and narrow way. The way is straight and narrow because it can only exist in the now. The minute we deviate into the past or future, we have lost the way. It is so straight and narrow that it can only be lived now. Now, the eternal now. Whether the body is in pain, or whether the pocketbook is empty, or even whether the state of morals is not too admirable, has nothing to do with it. Those conditions are merely the effects of world hypnotism, still operating in consciousness, and they will be dispelled when this moment of transition takes place, when we come into the infinite way, the way of life, the way of which I am. Whatever our spiritual or religious background, it should never be necessary for us to ask the question, what is the way? Lao Tzu speaks of the way, Buddha speaks of the path, Jesus Christ speaks of the way. What is this way? All three answer, I am. Probably in our day it would be easier to understand this if we use the big little word, is. In other words, now I am, not I was, not I will be, not I shall be, not I ought to be, or I deserve to be. The way is I am. I am means that I already am in heaven. I already am perfect. I already am spiritual. All this is implied in the words I am. In our seeking and searching days, However, it is necessary to declare the principle even if we are not demonstrating it, just as when the study of music is begun, the student must abide by its principles even if he cannot strike the right notes in time or space. Similarly, no matter how incorrectly a student works out his mathematical problems, he still must hold to the principle of mathematics. He may score only 50% on an examination, and later may raise that score to 90, but 90 or even 99 is not good in mathematics. It has to be 100%, otherwise it is incorrect. And so it is that in the beginning of our spiritual healing work, we would be very much discouraged if we were expected to achieve 100% success. Despite the fact that we are not outwardly manifesting that degree of success and demonstration, we do know the goal. The goal is not the attainment of an improved humanhood. The goal is the attainment of that mind which was in Christ Jesus. The goal is the attainment of my kingdom, which is not of this world. That is the goal, and the principle is, I am. We now know the way. The way is, I am. I am the way. I am now the way. Is. The grace of God is. That is the straight and narrow truth which we must hug to us until a moment that we know not of, in a moment that we think not, the bridegroom comes, and the spiritual realization dawns. But until that moment, we have to cling to the way, and the way is, I am. The way is. The way is this eternal moment. The way is dropping concern about yesterday or tomorrow. The way is to face fearlessly this moment. Face ourselves in this moment and realize that it is in this moment that all that God is, I am. Because the way is so straight and narrow, all this is difficult. We have to give up yesterday, and we have to give up tomorrow. True, it is difficult, but no purpose is served in saying it is difficult. No purpose is served in complaining. But it is so hard. What difference does it make how hard it is? Everybody has had difficulties, but there is no use talking about them because few care very much about anyone else's hardships. On the other hand, if we are finding the way easy, telling our neighbors about it or boasting of our success, this just adds to their burdens if they are meeting with adversity. Each one has to follow the way as it is given to him. Each one has to walk this way alone. It is not an easy way. Nobody has ever said that it was easy, and least of all would I ever claim that it is easy. I know what it means to pass from the mental or intellectual perception of a truth to the spiritual discernment of it. I know what it means to think, yes, you keep telling me these marvelous truths, but nothing is happening in my life. I know what that means. I have gone through it. I remember hearing these very same truths and thinking, I don't see any truth in it at all. What is it doing for me or for my neighbors? This is not an easy way, but when a person comes to this work with a completely open mind, he can receive its light. However, if he comes with some area of consciousness blocked off, judging this to be good and that to be bad, he is thinking in terms of the past or the future, and it is almost an impossibility for the complete light to reach him. If we are thinking in terms of the past or the future, we are thinking in terms of both good and evil, right and wrong, saint and sinner. The person seeking the full light must realize and recognize that in this split second of time there is only now, the now in which I am. As this spiritual sense is realized, we do not overcome jealousy, envy, sensuality. Rather do we come into a kingdom where none of these things exist, because there is no personal sense to be catered to receive anything, to need anything, or to want anything. How can anything be given to a person who has attained? How can a person who has attained have anything left to desire? How can a person who has attained have any sense of incompleteness? In that attainment which takes place in a split second of transition, God is revealed as fulfillment. There is a center within us which unfolds spiritually, and as it unfolds, it provides for our daily needs. However material the object may be that is necessary to our immediate unfoldment, healing, dollars, bread and butter, meat, housing, transportation, whatever its nature, it is not necessary to take thought about its attainment or unfoldment. It will appear automatically as it is needed. This spirit within us will always appear in visible expression the moment it is needed, and it will appear as the form necessary at that moment, whether it is the form of honesty that gives back the missing $2, the form of a loaf of bread, or the form of a seat in an airplane. Whatever form is necessary, and irrespective how physical or material it may seem to our senses, it will be there. It will be there in proportion as we relinquish the word I. I, the personal sense of I, am not responsible for my daily bread. I am. God is. The Spirit is. If we cling to the personal sense of I, then we do not permit the Spirit to operate and flow through us as healing and regeneration. All already exist at the standpoint of fulfillment. And so there are no desires, there is no future, there is only this second, lived 24 hours a day, in which nothing can be added to us and nothing can be taken from us. That is a high point of spiritual unfoldment. Then there is no desire because there is fulfillment. And in fulfillment, what is left to be desired? What can we hope to get? What can be withheld from us? Nothing.